dancer, actor, singer, director, producer. In the Hollywood of the 1940s and 50s, Gene Kelly was the perfect package. He didn't just dance in some of cinema's greatest scenes. He was the man who choreographed the dances. He earned himself a reputation as an artist and an innovator. We join him now for an interview he gave at the BBC's famous Lime Grove studios on a visit to London with his then wife, Betsy Blair, to promote the 1956 film Invitation to the Dance.
I've taken over reception duties at Lime Grove, temporarily I hasten to add, because in a few moments we're expecting a visitor to these studios who started life with the intention of becoming a lawyer. But to coin his own phrase, he thought he might save an awful lot of people from prison by becoming instead one of the best-known choreographers, dancers, actors, writers, directors in the film business. I'd like you to meet him straight away. Here he is, Gene Kelly. Hello, Gene.
Hello, Peter. How are you?
Oh, I'm fine, thanks. And you?
Well, just fine. It's good to be here and do a little bit of work over in England.
Well, we're glad to see you, Gene. I remember about 3 months ago I was talking to your wife in this very same building.
Yes, so I understood. That was about Marty Plug, you see, for her picture.
Of course. How is she?
She's just fine. She's over here now with me, my little girl, and we're afraid we have to leave soon, but we're glad to be here.
Good. Gene, let's go straight to you now. How did you start?
Well, start what? Start coming to England or...
Start in the business.
Well, that's a long story. I'm afraid it's sheer economics. I had to make a living some way, and I didn't want to do it by stealing. So, well, I became a dancer. I was working my way through school, and I found out I could do it best by doing little performances and dancing, and I soon fell into show business. It's as simple as that.
Now, they tell me that you opened a dancing school when you were 18 years old. Is that right?
Yes, I started to teach kids on the block and fellow students at school and so forth. And I got so interested in it, I began to study very hard, and fortunately, it turned out very well. After a while, though, I decided to brave New York City and become a choreographer, but strangely enough, nobody wanted me to be a choreographer, so I ended up being an actor. But afterwards, I became a choreographer
again. Gene, what was your first picture?
Me and My Gal with Judy Garland.
Mm-hmm.
Gee, that seems a long time ago. You shouldn't ask me questions like that. I get feeling older here. Yes, that was the first one, and then it went on from there.
Mm-hmm.
You remember that one?
Well, I don't think I do, as a matter of fact.
Just a boy.
I'll tell you what I do remember, one I like very much, Three Musketeers.
I like that one myself.
And you were all over the place, weren't you?
Yes, that was hard work, but we enjoyed it.
Mm-hmm.
Sort of cowboys and Indians with long wigs and beards and everything. Yes, I like that. I'm glad you mentioned that. That's about the only one that I didn't dance in for quite a while.
Dean, where did you develop this particular style of dancing, which is very much all your own?
Well, I believe it or not, was a classic ballet dancer first, and a lot of things I tried to say, I found I couldn't quite say. For instance, if I wanted to play a truck driver in movies, that is, you could say anything you want with classic ballet. But playing a part and having to dress like a truck driver instead of dressing in a classical costume, I decided to try to work out a style that would go along with American speech and American moves and American jazz music and so forth. So I did work hard at developing a style of my own. Now, whether this is successful or not, we'll leave that to you to judge. But it was with malice aforethought that I did it all.
Now, let's talk, if we may, a little while about Invitation to the Dance.
Oh, good. I'd like to talk about that.
First of all, where did you get the idea? Let's start like that.
Oh, I've had it a long time. I tell you, it originally started because I had been in so many films, and we always had trouble getting some of the dancers we wanted, because a dancer spends all his life learning to dance, and then he gets in a film and they say, well, now here's a scene, you act in it, and here's a song, you sing it, and so forth. And so a lot of good dancers, and I mean wonderful dancers, never have the opportunity to work in films because of this, because they can't act. So I said, well, wouldn't it be wonderful one day if we made a film that was about dancers and for dancers? So I've had this bee in my bonnet for a long time. The trouble was selling it, you see, selling the idea and spending all that money on a film with no dialogue and just dancers in it. And if I may say it, no Hollywood people, you know.
You say no dialogue.
No dialogue, no. It's all dancing, really all dancing.
Do you find that dancing in television and dancing in films has maybe drawn a lot of people to the ballet?
Well, I know I can't answer for England, of course, but I know in America that the interest in Sadler's Wells, for example, is so popular. When I visited there, the people just jammed the theater to see them. And I know a big reason for that was ballet films, particularly, I must say, the English film Red Shoes, you see.
Oh, yes. Yes.
So it has had a great effect on popularizing the ballet in America, and I'm sure it must have over here, too.
Well, I think it probably has. It's like so many other things, you know, when you see something at home on your television screen, you want to go and see more of it.
Well, I'm glad to hear that.
Mr. Kelly, please. We're ready now.
Yes, I think I must go and make a living here.
Well,
Peter.
Gene, just before you do go, one
Yes.
more question. Any regrets at all about not being a lawyer?
Any regret? No, I don't think so.
Goodbye. So there goes Gene Kelly, and the best of luck to him.
After dominating dance on the silver screen for over 20 years, 20th Century Fox gave Kelly the chance to direct the 1969 musical Hello, Dolly, starring Barbara Streisand, Walter Matthau and Michael Crawford, who talks about working with Kelly in this interview for the program Line Up Film Night.
They got me together with Gene Kelly in San Francisco, and I spent half an hour just talking to him, and he said, can you sing? And I said, well, yes, I can sort of sing. And what about your dancing? And I said, well, I've done a bit in the bath, you know. And he didn't laugh at that. And I said, well, he said, well, can you do this? He did a little thing, and I got very scared at that point, and I said, well, I really don't think. He said, come on, just do it. Just try putting those two legs there and there. And I had a go, and it was really very messy. But he said, well, I think it's worth doing a test. What we need is a sort of person who has some charm, but is sort of an idiot. Well, my wife thinks you've got charm, and I think you're a bit of an idiot after what I say, so you stand a good chance of doing this. I think it's the best thing that he could ever direct, or I don't think anyone else could have directed it anywhere near as well as him, but maybe I can just say that quietly, because he has done an incredible job with it. It has all the feeling that he had in his films. He generates enthusiasm and tremendous vitality. He is 26. He's my age. I'm 27. But the boy with me in the film is a dancer, since he was that high. Now, we did. You can do things like cartwheels with no hands. They're called butterflies. The boy I was with could do 4. Kelly could do 6, and he's 56. And that is really something. I mean, he's still got so much energy, that man. He works 7 days a week. And I used to have to work 7 days a week out there because of dancing and everything. I'm learning, so therefore I got a special pass to go and work on Saturdays. He'd come, because he knew that was going on. He'd want to be there. He'd come up to the house and say, I've got a great idea for Monday. And it's a change of half a line or something. But his enthusiasm just doesn't stop him from wanting to work and work and work.
Hello, Dolly won 3 Academy Awards and was nominated for another 4. Despite that success, musicals were no longer as popular as they had been. But in 1974, the surprise hit That's Entertainment had Kelly topping the box office once again, meaning new interest in his career and an encounter with Barry Norman.
Dancing is not all that joyful when you're putting it on film. It's great joy in creating it, but it's a chore to get it in that box. It's a big chore, and it's a lot of sweat, blood, and tears.
In fact, you were quite late starting in films, weren't you? You were already 30 when you made For Me and My Girl.
Yes, that's right. I was exactly 30. I left Broadway. Yes, I turned 30 in the middle of the film. working with Judy in my first film, I was automatically in a hit because she was such a big star. People liked her in it, and I sort of tagged along behind her and did very well.
One of our critics described you as a greater film artist than Astaire. Now, I'm sure your modesty will forbid you to accept this, but modesty apart, what do
Well,
you feel?
I know it has nothing to do with modesty. Fred, whom I dearly love and admire, was the epitome of American dance for 10 years. And that was quite important. I think he kept the dance alive. It's true that he danced with Ginger Rogers, and they were a team. It was the older tradition, but he was the American dance to people all around the world. And
Well, what would you say was your own major contribution to the musical? It would seem to me that you were the man who brought muscle and sweat and athleticism into
well,
dancing.
that might be true, but I feel that my biggest contribution was changing the costume. Whereas the male dancer in movies was always representative of the upper classes. I certainly couldn't be because of not only the way I dance, the way I wear clothes. If I put on a evening dress, a white tie and tails, I look like a truck driver, you see, or the Iceman cometh. And I think the outfit, changing into sweatshirt and blue jeans and moccasins and that, might have visually changing the look of the male dancer, might have been my greatest contribution. I don't know.
But I remember, I suppose On the Town was the one I remember most vividly, that all of a sudden, and it seemed to me for the first time in a musical, the song and the dance came spontaneously out of the action. Now
Yes,
that was a
well,
contribution
that-
you made, surely.
Yes, we did it on location. We did it on the town on location, and we did it as real people coming down real streets in New York City. And the sailor suits show your body, you know, just the same as a ballet dancer wearing tights. You can see how he dances.
New York, New York, New York, New York, New York, it's a wonderful town.
Hey, fellas, what's the big rush?
We only got 24 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah, we never been here before.
What could happen to you in one day? What do you think you're gonna do?
New York, New York, a wonderful town. The Bronx is up and the Battery's down. The people ride in a hole in the ground. New York, New York, it's a wonderful town.
But didn't the studio think with On the Town that they had a disaster on their hands?
They thought going to New York was the most ridiculous thing in the world, yes.
Well, they wanted to do it all in the back lot.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Oh, sure. Why not, they said, yes.
Cheaper.
Yes. And quicker, yes.
But it was your idea to take it to New
Yes,
York.
yes.
Why?
Because I knew it would work. I somehow knew it would work. Maybe if I'd been older and wiser, I would have said, well, I shouldn't take that kind of a risk. But I felt it was time to do it. And I had planned out ways to hide the camera so that we didn't need a police force around us to hold people back, and we could shoot very quickly. And we did.
We've sailed the seas and we've been the world over, Maine to Mandalay. We've seen the Sphinx and seen the cliffs of Dover, but we can safely say the most fabulous sight is New York in the light of the day, our only day.
New York, New York, a wonderful town. The Bronx is up and the Battery's down. The people ride in a hole in the ground. New York, New York, it's a wonderful town.
Well, let's talk about the musical, which I suppose it's got to be among almost everybody's top 2 or 3 musicals, and that's Singin' in the Rain. How much of that was scripted? Because I can't imagine a script that says, and at this point, Jean goes dancing up and down through puddles. Because who's going to believe that?
No script. Usually the scripts that were written about music would say, and here Kelly, or substitute Astaire or Connor or Dale, does a dance and it stops the show, you see. Usually they say something like that. It's up to the choreographer to supply a great deal.
I'm singing in the rain, just singing in the rain. What a glorious feeling, I'm happy again. I'm laughing at clouds so dark up above. The sun's in my heart and I'm ready for love.
The Singing in the Rain number per se was done because it's a charming song, and the producer who happened to write it, Arthur Freed, said, well, what are you going to do with this now? You know, we've done it a couple times before. I said, well, it's going to be raining and I'm going to be singing. And it was one of the easiest numbers I've ever had to put together.
It's fantastic because it's the one everybody remembers.
Well, it's a joyous number. I think people like to see joy on the screen. I think I had a long career as a dancer. I think I've been very lucky. The things combine to do things to a dancer or any kind of athlete. When you go into this type of vocation, you have to be, or you should be, intelligent enough to know that you're not going to last as long as a painter or a musician or a writer, because the tools with which you work, the tool, I should say, is your anatomy. And you're at your peak when you're about 25 physically, except you don't know anything. You're fairly stupid. When you begin to mature, which I will do when I'm about 80, when you begin to mature, you begin to deteriorate physically. So a dancer is disproportionately fighting against himself. One has to learn to pace oneself, and you can do a better number and that, but you still you can't jump over the same table you could 10 years ago. So you say, oh, I have to cut that out, you say, and you have to substitute something else. I love everything about show business. I can't imagine myself in any other trade. I don't know any other trade, but even if I had to hang around and just work lights or something, I think I'd enjoy it. I do love show business.
2 years after That's Entertainment came the inevitable sequel, and the date with Michael Parkinson that showed just why Kelly never lost his status as a true Hollywood legend.
You were telling me also, too, I mean, people tend to think now of song and dance men and musicals as kind of being a thing of the past, which indeed they are in terms of film. But you were mentioning to me earlier that, in fact, that tap dancing's coming back as a vogue now.
Yes, that's true. And I was talking to Mr. Astaire 2 weeks ago when we were doing a little thing introducing some clips and so forth, and That's Entertainment too. And he said, look at this silly letter I got. I have to fill in all. I said, look, I got the same letter, and it was from a university. I won't mention the university, quite a good university in America. And we get a lot of these things. They're looking at tap dancing now as some kind of a basic American art form. And I guess it is that. We never looked at it. We just got up there, took our check, and went home. No, that's
And they're asking you, are they to sort of teach them how to do it?
I thought that was water.
It is water.
Yes, there's a have a go at that.
You got lucky.
Well, I worked this morning.
That's right. But let's go back and talk about Fred Astaire, because, as I mentioned in my introduction, you're the two great giants of the film musical. What, in fact, was the basic difference between the two of you?
Well, there's a great difference between the two of us, and one of the reasons, I guess, for our friendship is that we often get together and talk about it over dinner or a drink or something. And Fred started dancing in vaudeville at a very early age with his sister Adele. As a matter of fact, he was very popular here in England, and they danced in musical comedies long before talking pictures. And Adele ran off and married an English lord or count or someone like that. I think it was the Earl of Cavendish, wasn't it?
That's right.
That's right. And here Fred was all alone, so they sent him out to Hollywood to go into talking pictures. And his first partner was Joan Crawford. And then he latched on to Ginger Rogers. And they had a successful career of I don't know how many years, but they were really the stars of the American film, and they represented American dance. But Fred's success, I believe, was his elegance, his particular style, which is unique. Nobody can really dance like him. And when I wanted to dance, I started on the Broadway theater a couple of decades later, and I wanted to dance, well, like Marlon Brando wanted to act, roll up my sleeves and say, hey, did you? And if there is a difference, I would categorize it as saying, let's see how I could put it succinctly, that Fred is sort of, he represents the aristocracy when he dances, and I represent the proletariat, and that's it. Up the rebels!
I was going to ask you about the first act that you ever did when you went on stage with your brother.
Well, my brother taught me to tap dance because we would go into speakeasies, and which existed up until 1932, and we'd go to amateur nights where they'd hold the handkerchief over your head, and whoever got the most applause got the $5. The next was 3, and the next 2. Of course, if you were in an Italian neighborhood, you knew the accordion player would get the $5, no matter what he played. Missed the notes, he'd hit the wrong key, and he'd get the $5. So if we see the accordion player, but then nothing happened. But that's where we got our training, and my brother taught me to tap dance very quickly, and we formed this poor little act. And then we tried to improve on it. We put on roller skates, and we were gymnasts. We were on the gymnastic team in high school, and we did a tap dance and roller skate, and we were foolish enough to put acrobatics into it, which I would never do today, you see.
But in fact, that background you put in, or some of it, into a film you made.
I did that in a film, yes.
It's Always Fair Weather. We've got that, in fact, that clip with us now. Let's
you have? I'd love to see that. Where do you see
It's
that?
one of my favourite sequences, and it just shows how good
Right here?
That's Entertainment Part 1 was, because, in fact, it wasn't in that, was it? And it's one of my favourite sequences of all time. Let's have a look.
You've got to be a little nutty to do that.
I think so. I know some dancers.
Everybody always says to me, of course, the wheels were locked on those skates, and everything I'm going, and I'm doing everything. I say, how could you look at the? I don't know how they look at the film and see.
Yeah. It's beautiful. That super.
Thank you, thank you.
Do you ever fall down when you're doing that? I must ask you when you're rehearsing it.
No, those steps were easier than the ones I did with my brother, so there's no problem.
Easier.
Yes, because we used to do backflips and things, but as I grew older and more mature, see, I kept
Danced with a mouse and all kinds of, and some kids there you performed with. But once you also danced with Francis Albert Sinatra, didn't you?
Yes.
Yes. Would you say he was the most...
He danced with Eugene Curran Kelly, yes.
What was the... were there any sort of special problems involved in teaching Mr. Sinatra how to dance?
Yes. First, he didn't know how to dance. But he was very good at rhythm. And he had 2 pictures that didn't go down well that he had done in another studio. So he came to me and asked me if I'd work with him on it. And I told him he'd have to really work like a boxer, a prize fighter every day. And after about a week, he became a bit recalcitrant because I'd make him do the same thing over and over again. But he got quite good, and then of course I would do things that were within his range. I wouldn't give him exactly what I give Igor Yuskevich, you know. But he became quite adept and a very good partner. And of course he was very good for me, and I'm very grateful to him because when I'd work with someone like Francis Albert, or Judith Garland, or Judy, see, they would sing the ballads in the show, and I wouldn't have to sing the ballad. I would sing the I Got Rhythm, you know, and I could sing the song and dance band stuff. So it was very good for me to work with them.
Yeah.
But occasionally I would get stuck with a ballad, and when the other person wasn't a good ballad singer, that's when I appreciated Francis Albert the most.
In fact, you're selling yourself short because I remember a film we were talking about, Cover Girl. You sang a beautiful Kern
Yes,
number.
I had to sing the ballad in there.
Which is a beautiful song.
Well, Mr. Kern was known for his sternness on Broadway, and I had just come from the theater a short time ago, and Kern and Ira Gershwin had written this song, and I was ready to record it, and they in those days, put you in a glass booth, and the orchestra was over there, and I didn't know how to do that to begin with. And, but I had learned the song, and just before we were going to take it, in walked Mr. Kerr, and he sat down in a chair like this. Well, I was scared to death. I was shaking because I thought he'd, you know, say, throw that bum out. So when I come out, and I said, well, Mr. Kerr and I can do better than that. Next take, you'll see, Mr. Kerr, and I'll do much better. He said, what? That's fine. And years later, I thought to myself, well, he expected much worse.
Frank Sinatra says, actually, about working with you, in this excellent book that Clive Hirschhorn's written about you, Gene, he said that you paid him the ultimate compliment after 8 weeks of working with him. Francis, you said, you've worked your way up from being lousy to adequate.
Well, if he said that to Clive, who's in the audience, I know because I passed him coming in, it must be true.
You're very much a perfectionist. I mean, it shows in your work that we see on screen. Would you say that yourself you're a difficult man to work with?
Any dancer has to be a perfectionist because if a dancer gets up and dances across the stage and stumbles or falls, he's a bum. If a singer hits a high note, he says, and then goes right on, or he says, whoops, it's not on the cue card. So you can't dance off a cue card.
Right.
You have to dance, you have to know the dance. And the music keeps on going. You can't make it up. If you make a slip, you can't say, whoops, let's start again. So if the dancer falls or stumbles or makes a bad move or a gauche gesture of any kind, he's out of luck. So you have to be highly disciplined. I think the dancer next is as highly disciplined as the symphony orchestra player who has to take the conductor's beat right away. Except he's sitting down all the time. So he dances with his body.
Was there anything that you've left unfulfilled after your career in Hollywood? Anything that you wanted to do with the film dance that you didn't manage to do?
No, when the bottom dropped out of the musical comedy market, again, to use the Hollywood term, because when Elvis Presley and the Beatles and other groups took over the record business, records became more profitable than making movies or doing plays. If you do a movie now or a play now and you have a hit album, you'll make more money off the album than you make from the show.
Yes.
And there's no use complaining about it. It's one of the facts of life. And with the statistics, I think, are 85% of the records sold in America now, I'm quoting, and I believe it's around the world, are sold to 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14-year-old groups. And they buy the rock and the country western records. And they account for 85% of the records sold. So naturally, they want to push them. It's true they don't last very long. There's one group comes up and dies, one group comes up and dies. But they sell a great amount of records. And we as adults, our musical listening habits are formed by 12-year-olds, whether we like it or not.
Mine aren't.
Well, then you must go home and lock yourself in, because if you get in the car and turn on your radio, you hear rock-a-duck-a-doo, you'll hear rock music. But and some of it's very good. I'm afraid most of it's the bands are electronically produced, and they use about 3 chords, and most of it's not very good. But some is very good, yes, as some of anything is good.
But if you see, what's interesting is that if you who've written your own chapter in the history of movies, if you were starting out now as the young Gene Kelly, what on earth would you do?
I'd try to do the same thing.
But could you, you see? There's
well,
no
I never meant to be a movie actor. I went to Broadway to be a choreographer, but if I went to be a choreographer, I'd do the dance that was in style, I guess, or try to create my own dance and make a style out of it. I think I'd do the same thing, but who knows?
Yes. Do you have, when you look back, are there any parts that you missed in your movie career? Any musicals that you wanted to do, were scheduled for and didn't do them?
None that I was scheduled for. Yes, I was scheduled for one called Guys and Dolls.
Really?
Sam Goldwyn wanted to borrow me from MGM, but Nicholas Schenck, the head of MGM, had a feud on with him and wouldn't lend me out to him. You see, they loaned out players like baseball or football players, you see. We're all in a contract. So that's the only one I really wanted to do.
And that was the Brando part, presumably, was it?
Yes, and Sam was very honest. He said he'd wait 3 months, and if he didn't get me, that he would get the best actor and make it more of an acting part.
Yes. Damn. But one film you did make, which I suppose is, well, I don't know, it's your trademark now, isn't it? It was Singing in the Rain, which is...
I guess so, yes.
I think, I mean, I play it over and over again. I've got it on tape, and I think it's flawless as a musical comedy. I think it's absolutely beautiful.
I think it's a film that might last, and not... No, I'm serious.
No, will last forever.
Very few films last. They date themselves. But what's good about Singing in the Rain is that it's all true. All of that happened.
Really?
Yes. When the studios turned over into sound, all of that happened. All of those incidents are true.
Those lovely Gene Hagen things.
Yeah, they're all true. They're all true.
That was beautiful.
Dancing and singing in the rain.
From one genius of performance to another, Eric Clapton, live in 12 bars tonight on BBC Two at 9:15. Next this afternoon from 1956, Carousel.